In this video, we're going to be taking another look at VeChain, and we're going to be taking a look at specifically the price action of what's been going on here with VeChain in the weekly chart, the daily chart, and of course that hourly chart, and giving you a bit of an insight as to what is likely to go on here in both the long term and short term for VeChain. Guys, as always, if you find this useful, informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate it. And of course, if you happen to be new to the channel and you'd like to stay up to date with all the technical analysis, news, and hidden gems, then why not go ahead and subscribe? By subscribing, you'll be kept up to date with absolutely everything we do here. Right, let's jump on into this and talk everything VeChain. Right, guys, as we get into this, we can obviously see that we are on the weekly chart here. And again, we have those 5 impulse waves to the upside. We see this starts off in the crash of March of 2020, pushing up to the high here in August. I think anyone who was in VeChain this early on would have been really aware of what was going on in August and the fantastic highs that VeChain was setting. We had the pullback, which took us towards the end of the year, towards November, and then we triggered into wave 3. And again, we were setting high upon high upon high during wave 3 here. Now, we have our pullback, and this is wave 4. And again, wave 4 is sharp and quick in relation to how basically wave 2 here was flat. Okay, so if wave 2 had been sharp and quick, then wave 4 would have been flat and slow. But in this regard, we can see that wave 4 has been very, very quick. So again, this does align nicely to the Elliott wave theory and these 5 impulse waves to the upside. Right now, we can see that we've had another pullback recently, and we'll get into some of those lower time frames to see what the expectations are for VeChain in both the shorter time frames as well as those medium time frames. Right now, we can also see that heading towards the end of the year, we should start to see VeChain reach around that dollar level. And again, this is our top of a 5th wave. And again, this is really visible here on the weekly chart. So let's take this down one additional level when we get into our daily chart here. Now, on the daily, we obviously have a Fibonacci retracement tool as always. And this one shows us how high we are looking to go with wave 5 here, about $1.01. That is the 4.236 area of the Fibonacci extensions. Okay, so obviously there's quite a bit of a battle that we have to go through in order to get there. And ultimately, guys, what we're looking at is this yellow box. This is the first barrier that we kind of really have to push through and get a closed candle above. A weekly closed candle above this position is going to be the strongest signal, but a daily candle will do quite well as well. But ultimately, we are looking for a weekly close above this yellow box, and that will be signaling us into wave 5, right, and moving VeChain significantly higher. So right now, we can also see that we are in a bit of a downward trend here, but we are getting a reversal. And this is quite key because ultimately, many of these altcoins are following Bitcoin's price action. And as we've been speaking about on some of our basically Bitcoin price updates, we can see that there is a bit of a Wyckoff accumulation forming here. So our expectations with Bitcoin will directly represent our expectations with VeChain. So when it comes to VeChain here at the moment for Bitcoin, obviously it is having a bit of a pullback today. This is kind of expected before we go up and kind of take out that 40K level for Bitcoin. And what that will mean to VeChain is we'll expect a bit of a pullback before we start to get that surge to the upside, and we'll start seeing some significant price increase here for VeChain. Again, there'll be a pullback after that, and again, after that pullback, we'll be setting another run to the upside. This run to the upside takes us towards this yellow box, in my opinion. So the expectations here are that we'll have a bit of a pullback. We'll push on up significantly, bit of a pullback, push on up again, and then we'll obviously have a little bit more of a downside correction. Now, ultimately, we don't know where these lines are going to be. It all depends on the sentiment in the market, and at the moment, that sentiment is quite fearful, and it's important that we do acknowledge that because ultimately that sentiment is what's going to drive the price action. Now, if we bring up the volume side of things here, what we can do is actually graphically represent this sentiment here in the chart. Here we can see the price of VeChain falling down. And during that, we can actually see the volume going up, and that volume increasing is selling pressure. This tells us that there's loads of fear in the space and people are liquidating faster than they are buying back up, as in the price is moving up in the last couple of days here, and we can see that the volumes are actually decreasing. Okay, so that shows us graphically what that represents in terms of sentiment. We can see that there's fear, there's a very little buying pressure, and there's lots of selling pressure because people are scared in the space. And again, if you've been watching our videos, there's very little to be scared of at this point if you're a long-term investor and you kind of understand where we're going in wave 5 and that dollar level. Right now, we're at 7.7 cents. So there's a significant return on investment to be made here. And for those smarter investors who may be dollar cost averaging better positions in VeChain, you'll be enjoying some significant highs in my opinion. Now, the other things that we can note on this daily chart is we are really, really low on our relative strength index. This actually puts us down to close to being to oversold area, and ultimately there's only really one place to go when you're this low, and that is to the upside. So I do believe that the sentiment is going to be shifting and changing as Bitcoin goes and rallies up towards that 40k level, and I think this is where there's going to be a bit of a false positive. I think the sentiment is going to change. We're going to see some fantastic price discovery moving back up towards those higher areas, and then the rug will be pulled from those investors, those retail investors again. And this is part of that Wyckoff accumulation period. This is by intention, it's by design. It's basically to push the price up, rip that retail money out of the market again, and then repeat. And this will be the last time you'll actually have this and you'll see this. And again, this is represented very visually here in the Bitcoin chart, right? So what we're talking about is basically this move to the upside here where we hit that 40k. The pullback is the last kind of major kind of pullback, getting down to this lower area of about 30k before rallying up, getting here, and then obviously signs of strength appearing at the later stages. Now, ultimately, what we'll end up with is a nice run to the upside. So this is where we are currently approaching, heading up towards this 40k. This will be the euphoric moment where everyone's calling that the correction's over, only to have that kind of corrected and pulled from beneath them, and then obviously moving up again. So when we talk about VeChain here, those expectations will be the same. We'll see significant runs to the upside, and again, we'll have those pullbacks, okay? And that pullback will be the last major pullback before we start seeing the price rise again. Another couple of pullbacks before we actually get that sign of strength and to move on out of here. Now, what we're going to do is just jump down into our hourly view. And this shows us a lot more about what's been going on recently. And again, there's lots of things that we can do here, right? So obviously we can draw on our trend lines. And again, these are interesting trend lines. But again, trend lines are the easiest things to get invalidated on a chart. Obviously here was a breakthrough event right now. Okay, so right now we are looking to push through this upper boundary. So we have a downward trend that is breaking at the point of recording this video. This is going to obviously continue a surge to the upside. Again, that sentiment here with VeChain is still a decreasing volume. We can see that. And we can see here right in the moment of actually rallying up here, the volumes are decreasing right now. So this is going to be short-lived in my opinion. Most likely we'll have a bit of a test and we'll fall back down. And the question here will be, is our upward trend line going to hold? Is it going to continue that support run? The other thing that we have to be mindful of is that we haven't got too much more room of that relative strength index before we are going to have a bit of a correction. So a breakthrough right now looks like it's going to happen, and then a back test probably on our support line here. Now, if that holds, that'll be a really strong move to the upside still. But I think more than likely we will invalidate our upward trend and actually turn our downward trend into a downward support trend line rather than a resistance line. So all of these areas of resistance would become support lines. So again, I think we've got the room to do that here, but the volumes are not strong enough, so we'll fall back, and that will be in line with our expectations. Now, obviously, once we have that back test, I think we'll then have a good run to the upside, and that run to the upside will be in line with Bitcoin's run to 40k. Here we can obviously see that we have resistance lines. These come in at 9.2, 9.8, and 10.7 cent. 10.7 cent is going to be the major resistance line that we want to be pushing through once we are past 9.8. So ultimately 9.2 is quite a weak one. That should be relatively straightforward for us to push on through. There was lots of consolidation around 9.8 cent. So this is an area that we're going to struggle to push through. But once we're through here, we'll be in a pretty good position to continue our run to the upside for VeChain here. And again, we'll probably consolidate in this area for some time. And then there'll be another Bitcoin pullback. And the idea here will be that we'll ultimately try to find support on these lines. And if we can find support during that Bitcoin correction, then when Bitcoin takes its rally to 41k, we'll actually start seeing significant rise in value for VeChain here. And again, the upper boundary here does seem to be up there at about 11.5 cent. That seems to be the major resistance line. I find kind of unlikely. I don't think we're going to actually pass 11.5 cent until we actually get into that sign of strength signal from the Wyckoff accumulation on Bitcoin. And again, this is potentially last another 4 weeks or so. So again, for those people who are looking to acquire bigger positions in VeChain, it's just dollar cost average those positions, and you should do pretty reasonably well. And guys, I think we're going to be in a bit of a euphoric moment in the next kind of couple of days, and I expect that to be short-lived as Bitcoin will have another correction. And then again, once that correction comes in, finishes, we'll be put for another push up towards the 11.5 cent area for VeChain. I think once all that kind of stuff is done and out of the way, guys, we'll be in a really strong position moving into wave 5 for VeChain. And yeah, hopefully you guys found this useful. It's a brief update. Try to keep it short and sweet for you guys. If you did, hit the like button. We really appreciate that. And of course, if you happen to be new to the channel and you'd like to stay up to date with those new cryptocurrencies, the hidden gems, the technical analysis and news, then do go ahead and subscribe. By subscribing, you'll be kept up to date with absolutely everything we do here. It is free. You'll stay well informed. So why not? With that said, done and out of the way, guys, I hope you have a fantastic day and we'll catch you in the next one.